Y'all, welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Today we are going to actually be getting into my addiction story, and it's going to be part 1. So let's get into it. Like a tattoo. The way you wear that dress, they gonna attack you. Way you look at me, baby, I got you. Okay, so I've been going back and forth about putting this whole thing out there, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put the first part out there. Before I even start anything, I want to put a trigger warning out there. I am gonna be talking about drugs, domestic abuse. So I just wanna kind of let y'all know that before I even get into any of it. I have had to write, because it's crazy when you go through trauma, what your brain just totally blocks out. So I've been kind of trying to write it down and kind of bring some stuff up, which I don't really know how I feel about that either, because part of me is like, well, do I really want to relive that? But at the same time, I feel like in order for me to, I feel like it's important for an addict to remember, so that way that's just another reason why you don't go back down that path. And I feel like you also have to heal from that trauma, because I don't want it to rear its ugly head later down the road. So if you see me looking down or anything, I have written it all, written everything down. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything, and I want to make sure that I just really stay in order of the story. So there's that. This is a judgment-free zone. I know the internet's the internet, but I want to put this story out there because hopefully it could help somebody. I feel like if I put my story out there and tell y'all what I've been through, and then I can maybe be like, but look at what I'm doing now. It's possible to get out of it, and you can. I've been clean for 2 years, and I'm about to start beauty school, and there's just so many good things that are happening. So I feel like my whole purpose for wanting to do this whole social media thing is to inspire people. In order for me to do that, I have to let y'all in and tell you guys my story. So here we go. So before I graduated high school, I hadn't really, I partied and I drank and I smoked weed. I don't know what you're allowed to put on YouTube, what you're not allowed to put on YouTube, whatever. So I graduated June 3rd, 2011. And that summer, I pretty much immediately moved out of my mom's, and was staying with my daughter's dad, my ex-husband. He really didn't have a place to live either, so we were kind of just jumping around. We would stay, couch to couch, sleeping in the car. We slept in the woods for a period of time. Yeah, really just jumping around everywhere. That summer was the first time I ever tried any type of hard drug, and I did try meth. That was crazy. That was so crazy. The very first time I did it, we ended up out by the reservoir, and I swear the dude dropped us off and left us out there and told us he was gonna go get more, and then he was gonna come back and pick us up, and that we were gonna do it and we were gonna have a great time. Well, we ended up literally being out there all night. This man never came back and got us. But I remember I was hallucinating. I for real deal thought that there was gonna be an owl that was gonna come and just whoop and just drop it out of the sky. Drugs are bad, okay? I don't know why I thought that. I don't know. And then was super, super, super paranoid the whole night. Any car that drove by, it was the police and we were gonna get caught, and it was crazy. Oh my God, it was crazy. So then, I mean, I kept doing it. We kind of kept doing it. I ended up trying coke. At first, whenever I started using, I was all about like the stuff that would like make you speed. So mainly meth at this time. I had tried coke. I think bath salts were a thing at this point. Like I said, anything that would like make you speed. I would do pain pills if they were there, but it wasn't like my thing at the time. Sorry guys, I'm just making sure I'm in the right spot. Yes, so we kept doing that. And then that fall, we ended up moving in with his brother and like 6 to 8 people that literally lived in this house. And it was just a big party house. The whole reason we moved in was the landlord's son died, who had lived in the house. And they, I guess, found his body in the house. And the only person that was in the house was this lady that he was still gonna let live in the house, but she lived in the basement. And she was like, lost her mark. Like that woman literally sat there and would play on her little boombox, Black Hole Sun, over and over and over and over. And I'm not even gonna lie, it kind of became a game that like each one of us, we would take turns and we would go unplug it and then run from the garage, like the door down to the garage. It was crazy, but it was a full-blown like party house. Like I remember in this house is where I did crack for the first time. That was absolutely crazy. We had one of the people that lived in the house had fired a gun out the back door, and the next thing we know, we got 12 cop cars lined up out front, and like people are like in handcuffs and like down on their knees. And it was just, that was literally all we did in that house, was party. Every single bit of anybody's money went towards some type of drugs, some type of alcohol. And obviously we ended up getting kicked out. We were only there for a couple months. We ended up moving out. I don't remember exactly what month it was. I know it was the end of 2011, and I know that it was snowing when we moved because I remember like loading up the moving truck. But we ended up not paying our rent, and we ended up getting kicked out. We had to like tear up all of the carpet in the house. It all got destroyed. And then really in that house was when I started with being emotionally and physically abused. It was a lot of me being worthless. I was accused of cheating all the time, and you know, hindsight's 2020, come to find out he was the one who was, you know, every time that he would accuse me, he was really the one that was out cheating. He put me through a screen door. He choked me multiple times. There was one night that his brother had tried to break it up, and he ended up like headbutting his brother in the face, and it was a hot mess. He ended up having to his brother zip tied him because he was just coming after me, and I don't even remember why we were arguing. It was crazy because it was like and that's what I'm talking about blocking stuff out, because I truly blocked a lot of that out. Like I can remember, like I get flashes, and it's like I can hear the words in my head, but like the actual arguments and stuff, like a lot of it was like total like delusion, like made up in his head. Like it was legitimately scary because it's like, it felt like in his brain it was like a totally different reality than like anything that was taking place. So whenever it was like any type of fight or any type of argument, it was going 100, and I'm every single thing in the book but a white woman, and I was worthless. I was never going to be anything. And then, you know, whenever somebody's mad at you, if they, you know, if they want to hurt your feelings, they're going to go for the stuff you're vulnerable. So then I would be fat. He would make fun of my face because, you know, I have the Bell's palsy. Any type of insecurity, I always didn't have very much self-confidence, so I was kind of really an easy target for anything like that, because it really just like hit me and like it hurt me, and it's still not hard to like break me down, because I feel like I'm so emotional and I take everything so sensitively, and like I've always had an issue with being super 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 sensitive and having anxiety, but it's like when you get put in that type of a relationship to where you just keep getting put down, put down, put down, put down, like you really start to believe that. And I think at that point, I was really starting to believe that, and I really didn't feel like I deserved anything good. I didn't, deserve a good life. This was the life that I deserved to live. So I just stayed and put up with it. And when somebody like that, they do love bombing, is I think what it's called. So like every so often things would be like really, really great, and they would like shower you with like love and attention, and like really it seems like the more hardcore they are about the love bombing, the harder it's going to be when everything really hits the fan. So we moved out of there. We moved into his mom's house. We were still doing meth. And then we were doing, I totally about missed a whole story. Right before we moved out of that house, we were actually to the point to where we're doing crack so much. We had a printer. And he had decided that it was a good idea that we print up some fake money and take it to the person that we were getting that from. That was a whole scary experience, because he knew immediately that that was not real, and ended up pulling him into the back room, and it ended up being okay. Like nothing happened. In fact, he said if you could figure out how to make more of it with different, and make them look a little different, because the serial number is what gave them away, because every bill has a different serial number, so that's what gave it away. So he ended up like actually kind of being cool about it. But when he saw, like, oh my God, that was the scariest. I for real thought, this is gonna be it. This is not gonna be good. That was right before we moved out. We moved into his mom's. Kind of into his mom's, like that's where our stuff was, but we weren't there all the time. We were still doing a lot of drugs, a lot of meth. We ended up getting kicked out of there because him and his mom were getting into it, and I mean, we were on drugs, so we were not the best roommates. We were never there. We were coming in and out all hours of the night. It was just, nobody wants to live with that. So we got kicked out of there and staying back in the car, jumping from couch to couch. We ended up moving in with this one girl who she was really bad into drugs too. And we ended up getting married when we lived there, March 2012. But at this point, we are hanging out with the person who is actually making the drugs. We're hanging out with them and like watching their kids form, so that way they can make them, and like helping them make them so that way we can get deals, and like just getting more and more and more and more into it. I literally remember when we were staying with one of his friends one time, and I like legitimately freaked out about it, because like he took it and he wouldn't give it to me. And like that was really the point where I was like, oh, I like this a little bit more than what I thought I did. So I remember he went and told his friend to flush it, and I was freaking out, because I'm like, he's not flushing it, he's in there doing it, and he's doing it all without me. And I freaked out, like I was gonna take that door down. That really was like kind of an eye-opener again, but only for like a couple weeks, because we continued to do it. We were sleeping in the car at one point in a parking lot, and some random man came up and noticed that we were sleeping in the car, and he actually, fun fact, I'll save that for a later part. put a pin in that because I end up knowing the person. He ends up coming back up later in my story. He ended up being somebody that my mom went to school with, but he had this camper that was in an alley like behind one of his sister's houses and was like, okay, you guys can stay here, but like the name, I have to edit it out. He told him that he would have some work for him. So like he would just need to, you know, whenever he had work for him, do that and, you know, pay him what he can, but like, he knows struggles hard, yada, yada, yada. So we're there for a couple weeks. And then he actually gets into it with the dude that's letting us stay in the camper. And he ends up calling, cussing him out. Well, he didn't answer the phone. His wife did. And he ended up calling his wife a bitch. And he did not take too kindly to that. In fact, he showed up to the house with like 8 other dudes in the back of a pickup truck. And they were coming to jump my ex. So he takes off and leaves me there by myself. And so everybody's now freaking out on me. They're all yelling at me. His wife tries to attack me. Some girl that's there stops it. But like, she's like, well, if he's saying this, then, and he's not here, then I'm gonna take it out on you. And I'm like, okay, I kind of understand like where you're coming from, but like I did not do that. And I've never been a confrontational person. I'm not a fighter. That's just not me. Leave me out of it. So that ended up being a major problem. And then from there, we ended up getting into it that night really bad because I was really upset that he left me there because I'm like, you don't know what could have happened. Like they could have killed me and I would have just been gone because you just left me. But at the same time, like, I probably would have took off too. But yeah, anyways, where did we go from there? Oh, we ended up going to stay back at his aunt's house, which was never ever a good thing because she was a major alcoholic and there was always drama because she was one of those that would drink and then she'd get really violent and belligerent, and then like he's not any less ignorant, so that was just a volatile situation. Still continuing to do drugs. At this point we were starting to smoke spice when it came in, or they called it incense, and that would like literally make me like hallucinate and black out. So that was becoming a thing. People were beginning to notice us doing that and not liking that at all. That ended up being a major argument with like my mom and my dad because they noticed it, and then the whole rehab conversation comes up, and then of course at that point, I'm not going to rehab. What are you talking about? I don't have a problem. Famous last words. But so we end up getting kicked out of his aunt's house. And then the window out of our vehicle gets busted out because one of the people who came to jump him when we were staying at the camper saw the vehicle because it was one of those that stuck out like a sore thumb. So when he saw it, he busted the windows out. So we couldn't stay in the car anymore. Pretty much had jumped around from couch to couch enough that we had like overstayed our welcome. So at that point, that's when we end up at the homeless shelter. And then the only way we could even stay there together was because we were married at the time. But we ended up moving in there. We were there for a couple months. That's actually where I really stopped doing like the speed. Like I would still do it, but that's really when I stopped liking it because while we stayed there, we started more so with the painkillers. That was actually where I had used a needle for the first time. We were shooting up morphines, opanas, pretty much any of those that we could get our hands on. And yeah, we were doing that in the homeless shelter. So then there's people coming through that are like ransacking through everything, because if they get like word that there are any drugs up there, then of course they're going to come look, because they don't want that stuff in their homeless shelter. It was Christian ministries, for Christ's sakes. They don't, that's not what that's supposed to be for, because that's probably why you're in there in the first place. But that was a whole new experience. Met a bunch of shady people. That's where I learned about people. They tried to get me to go stand like on the side of the street corners where like you ask people for money, and they actually made like a decent amount of money doing it, but they could never get me to do it. At that point they had tried to also, there was heroin around at that time, but I was too scared to do it in that moment. I don't know why that was any different to me than doing the other pain pills that I was doing. But I did. That is when I started to do that. So we were doing that. What else were we doing? And like I said, I would still do, you know, meth or crack if it was there. But this is when I more so started to focus on to painkillers. And then I kind of stopped for a little bit because we needed to move, because there was a time frame that you're allowed to be there. So I ended up getting a job, and his dad actually ended up helping us get like a little 1-bedroom, like efficiency. So it's like a studio. So we moved in there. We continued doing everything we were doing. I did start shooting up again. We started doing a little bit more speed at that time. So it was kind of, we were really doing both. And just kind of kept that up. Having all of the arguments all the time, because I don't know if you know, but if you do know, like with meth and like crack and like speed like that, like with that really comes with a lot of like paranoidness, and our arguments just got worse and worse and worse. And he did put his hands on me multiple times at that point. And then continued on with like the mental stuff. Like, I almost get mad at myself because I feel like I was really super vulnerable, and like I really, really let that happen. Like I let myself get beat down because I already didn't feel very good about myself. So I get really upset with myself, because I'm like, why did you let that happen? Like, why? Because now I couldn't even imagine putting up with anything like that. Like, and I really hope that, you know, my daughter learns from me and she doesn't put up with that kind of stuff, because that's just not okay. That's not acceptable at all. You know, and at first it starts out with, because he would also do, if we were like sitting there talking to people, he would do the thing, like he'd have like his hand right by my leg, and like if I said something he didn't like, or if I started to say too much, he would just sit there and pinch me, and just sit there and pinch me, and pinch me, and pinch me. And then finally, whenever we did get by ourselves, then he would, you know, tell me where I messed up and what I did wrong. And it was just a mess. But we ended up getting kicked out of that apartment because he actually got into it with the landlord and spit in his face. So we had to move. So his dad ended up helping us get another house. And at this point, we had also met people that lived down the road. So we ended up getting a place from their landlord. And we ended up being pretty good friends with them. I don't talk to him anymore to this day. But this was a 1-bedroom duplex. And then this, where are we at this point? We moved in that house the beginning of 2013. So when we moved in there, I think that kind of, it made me feel good, because it was like more of a house. I was still working. He had started working for this landlord at this point, so we were okay there for the moment. So I really wasn't using as much at this point. Still heavily drinking. We would still, you know, have parties all the time and argue and fight. And later down the road, I found out that he had cheated on me right when we moved into this house. So that, now knowing that, really explains why it was so bad when we moved in. June of 2013, I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter. So at that point, I had already slowed down on using, and I totally stopped. I did not use it all when I was pregnant. But it was very, very, very dark. You know, they say that a woman will always remember how you treat them when they were pregnant. And it was just not, you know, all of the fun stuff you're supposed to do when you're pregnant, like the maternity pictures, like all of the belly pic, all of this and that. Like it wasn't that at all. Like, in fact, I remember saying multiple times that I don't think I'm going to be able to carry this baby to term because I feel like I'm going to miscarry because I'm under so much stress. Like, my body just could not take any more stress. There was, one night right before my baby shower, my mom threw me a baby shower. The night before, he's drinking with the neighbors. He ends up finishing a whole half gallon of vodka by himself, comes home, comes into our room, and ends up passing out on the bed, whatever. When I get ready to go get in the bed, I try to move him. This man starts like trying to hit me and trying to kick me in the stomach, like got like super, super violent. And I had to go around and hide in the bathroom because he was like going around the house, like looking for me. And I had to wait for him to come back in the bedroom and pass out. And I eventually came back out. I see him, he stands up, pees all over the bed. And at this point, I just let him just lay in it. Because when he was done, he literally just laid back down and went back to sleep. And at this point, I'm like, you know what? You can sleep in it. I don't care. And then the next day wakes up like nothing ever happened. Like, are you serious? Like, I'm sitting here pregnant, like very pregnant, because this was towards the end of my pregnancy. And this is, like, I'm supposed to be happy right now. Like, I'm supposed to be excited, and we're supposed to be doing all these things and doing these bonding things and making these memories. And I didn't have any of that. In fact, the whole time I was pregnant, I was told that Elena was not his child and that I had been cheating on him. Like I said, come to find out after the fact, he had been cheating on me while I was pregnant with multiple different people. So, yeah, that was not the best. That's part of the reason I really want one more baby with, I really want me and Keandre to have a baby, because I want me and him to be able to have those experiences together. And I know that it's not going to make all that go away, but I feel like we both deserve to be able to have those memories and to be able to do all those fun things and to do a gender reveal and do maternity. I just feel like that's really important. Those are some of the things that are really important when you're pregnant, and when you don't do them, like it sucks. I thought it sucked. And then she was born on March 20th of 2014. And like I said, I didn't use any drugs or anything the whole time I was pregnant with her. So she was born and she was fine. I didn't have any issues, with like the hospital, or CPS or anything like that at that point. And I just had a beautiful baby girl. And that's where we're going to end the story for today. So that was 2011, 2012, 2013, and then the beginning of 2014, because she was born in March 2014. So, like I said, I know that I don't have all of like the in-between details and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that, like I said, just is like I can't find it. I'm trying. I feel like the more I write it down, the more memories I have, and I'm sure I'll have to update my story at some point. But this is the majority of it, I guess, like the basis of it. So, like I said, I just wanted to go ahead and get it out there and get it started. I am fully anticipating on having to redo this whole story at some point, but yeah, so be nice. Be nice. If you've not walked in somebody else's shoes and you don't know anything about addiction or domestic abuse, then you really don't have any say-so in this conversation. but I definitely want to get it out there. I want people to see that you can be in a better place, be in a better relationship, love yourself. I want people to see that. So I'm going to continue to put my story out there so I can help the people. Because if my story resonates with you, then it was meant for you. If this story doesn't resonate with you and you want to just be judgmental, and then it's not for you. And that's fine. That's fine. You can't be for everybody. So, but if you guys have made it to the end of this video, I highly appreciate it. Make sure you go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button before you leave. And I also want you guys to drop your sober dates down in the comments below. And I will see you guys next time.